Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar on Donor Love, Not Data Entry, Agentic AI in Action. My name is Ali Pakalnis, and I will help facilitate our webinar today. Before we get started, here are a few tips on using the Zoom platform so you can engage with our presenters and have the best experience possible. Next slide. You should see a Zoom toolbar with icons for Ask a Question and Raise Your Hand. Please use the Ask a Question feature to submit a question or comment. If you need any assistance, click on the Raise Your Hand button and I will connect with you to help. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation and we will do our best to answer them all. If we didn't answer your question, we will follow up with you personally after the presentation. Within 72 hours of the webinar, you will receive a link to download the slide deck and recorded presentation. Next slide. Today's webinar does qualify for CPE credits. To receive your credits, you must actively respond to 3 out of the 5 polling questions and stay on for the duration of the webinar. If you have any difficulty answering the polling questions, please email elevatelearn@armanino.com with questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters today, Stacy Cornwell, Lauren Nelson, and Brenda Kaler.
Hi, everyone. Great to have you all today on the call. Really excited about our topic today and glad to be joining you. My name is Stacy Cornwell. I'm the National Industry Leader here at Armanino for the nonprofit and education industry. I'm also an audit partner, so I wear a couple of different hats here at the firm. And I'm really excited to introduce my co-presenters who are so skilled and very knowledgeable about this topic and what they're going to say today. So I'll hand it off to Lauren first.
Yeah, wonderful to have you all with us today. Lauren Nelson, I'm a director on our AI Analytics and Automation group here at the firm. With the firm for going on 6 years now, and it's been quite the journey, but excited to be presenting to you all today with Stacy and Brenda. So I'll hand it to you, Brenda.
Hi, everybody. My name's Brenda Kaler. I've been here at Armanino about 10 years. Prior to that, I was a client. And I really joined Armanino to help nonprofits embrace technology. And so I'm an AI enthusiast, and I'm very excited to be able to share with you today some of the things that we've been seeing with Agentic AI. So I'm really excited about the demos that Lauren has prepared for you. Really excited to be here today. Thanks.
A little bit about who Armanino is for those of you on the call that may be unfamiliar with us. Armanino is a top 20 firm in the nation. We are nationwide in terms of clients and where our employees are located as well. You can see there in the boxes the coverage that we have not only in the United States, but also internationally in Canada and India. We have about 2,700 employees spread across all of those locations and team members in 41 states here in the United States. We are unapologetically a growth firm and also an AI firm, as you will hear today from our presenters. We can go to the next slide. Just a little bit here in terms of us. Our promise is that we want to make a positive impact in the lives of our clients and our people. We continuously evolve and elevate to provide those solutions that help you meet where you are and provide clarity for what your needs are both today and tomorrow. There's some recognition and awards over there on the right-hand side of the screen. We're really proud of those that are related to, in terms of the best firms. That really speaks to what our clients are saying about us and how we meet them and address those challenges that are top of their needs. We go on to the next slide. A little bit about our nonprofit industry, because this particular presentation today is going to be talking about nonprofit topics. So in our nonprofit industry, we work with about 2,000 clients every year. Those clients are spread across all of our service lines within consulting, tax, and then our attestation services. Our industry is aligned by subverticals. You can see those different subverticals at the bottom of the screen here. This slide is going to become important as we get into our presentation a little bit more in depth today, because some of what we're going to present is specific, and the ideas around AI and agentic AI are specific to some of these verticals. And you'll see that in action when we get to the demonstration and the case study part of the presentation today. Go on to the next slide. Let's go ahead and kick it off with our first poll question of the day. You're going to have 5 poll questions to respond to today for CPE credit. So we're going to give about 45 seconds here or so for you all to answer this first polling question. You're going to want to make sure you answer it because this is important as we get into our content and our topics today. So on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your current AI usage? So one being lowest, we're not started yet. We're kind of dabbling, not sure where we need to be. 5 being experts. Probably give it around 20 more seconds or so. Make sure everybody has a chance to answer the question. Kind of excited to see what everybody's going to put in here. Okay. All right. So it looks like we've got a pretty big category in the middle piece of the range there. So that tells me that pretty much a lot of you have adopted AI in some way, shape, or form. This is good. Good to see. We want to move more of you into that category 4 and 5, and hopefully our content today is going to help you do that. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the poll and jump into our conversation today. So again, really glad to see the results on that last poll question. Just going to start this out. The conversation has changed. All of you know that. All of you have heard that in previous webinars. Our challenge to you today, for those of you who are kind of just dabbling in it or maybe are in the policy phase of it at the very beginning, our challenge is to do something, to ideate with it, use Copilot to think about ideas, or get a group together in your organization to think how AI could impact your operations and what you're doing day to day. That is the best place to start. That's the basis to start, and that generates all of the ideas from there. Folks aren't experts overnight. It really takes all of that realization and the thinking about the tools and the optimism and the positive energy to figure out how it's going to help you, what direction you're going to go moving forward. And then you're going to be so excited that you're not going to wait and you're just going to keep leveling up that scale in terms of your AI usage. So nonprofit verticals and AI opportunities. I have to tell you, we've done a lot over the past year in all of our geographies. We've done a lot of smaller group-based workshops. Many of you on the line have been a part of those workshops in the geo where your organization is located, or where you live and work. I know a lot of you are remote workers, but those workshops have been really impactful, not only for the participants to ideate, whiteboard, give their thoughts and comments on how AI can help them, but also provide a little bit of a framework, as I mentioned before, about what are those opportunities and what are those focus areas and those different sub-verticals within the nonprofit space, within the nonprofit industry. So to kick off some of what we're talking about today, we've provided you some of those notes that have come out of those workshops by the different sub-verticals and where folks have come up with ideas about where they could focus at. And you'll notice that all of these focus areas over on the right-hand side are very specific to the type of nonprofit, to the type of sub-vertical that the nonprofit is. So we see in the performing arts space, things around audience feedback. We see in private education, usage related to lesson planning, parent outreach. So every scenario is different. And that's really what we want to do. That's where you start. That's ideation. That's thinking through how it impacts your organization. We can add and add and add to this framework and generate even more ideas and more opportunities for AI. So this is what we've been hearing. This is where we want to start you out, and let's jump into more of the details, and we'll hand it off to Brenda.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Stacy. It's a great segue into this. And so I can't tell you how many times in the last year somebody has called me up and been like, hey, Brenda, I need to get on this whole AI thing. My boss is like telling me I got to do AI. What do I have to do to do AI? And I'm like, that's probably the wrong question, right? Because we want to start with where are the pain points? And so maybe a better question to ask your staff about where to start and how to get the biggest bang for your buck are, Tell me about all those 25 tab spreadsheets. Tell me about the things that you save till last on your closed spreadsheet because nobody wants to do them. Tell me about those processes that take too long and you get complaints about, that involve 7 different departments, that involve 5 layers of approval on something that's worth less than $1,000. Those are the kinds of things, those operational, those business pain points. And guess what? None of those are unique to nonprofits, right? So all of those things are being experienced by everybody in business, which means that they're innovating and they're paying for these solutions to be developed a lot faster than nonprofits are able to adopt them. And so nonprofits don't have to be at the forefront of innovating this, but you don't want to be a laggard. You don't want to be at the end of the adoption curve. And so starting to talk about now about where are those pain points in your day-to-day processes. A lot of them are going to be cross-departmental. Accounting and finance and development partner a lot together. Accounting and operations partner a lot together. How can we get information more quickly, more streamlined, more timely? How can we take month-end close out of month-end? So those are a lot of the really exciting conversations we've been able to have with folks, and they really fall into these 3 main buckets. Repetitive and manual tasks. The accountant involved or the person involved there is not adding any value to the process. They are simply moving data from one system to the other, or they're moving data from a scanned document into a system. And so that doesn't have to be done by a person, but there does need to be a person in the loop there. And so thinking about how do you processes that allow things that can be automated to be automated, but still have a review so that you're able to make sure that those agentic AI, those bots, are operating as expected. Another thing to look at are those error prone and quality issues. One of the things that I always run into is things around like fixed assets and prepaids, where they're over depreciated, under depreciated, not done at the right rate, done for too many periods and things like that. And so thinking about within the systems that you have, how can some of those things be more automated to take the frequent errors that you're encountering out of the process? And then, of course, bottlenecks and friction. Everybody wants to be more efficient. I don't know any nonprofit that can say that they are fully staffed and have all the people that they need to do their work and not burn anybody out and make sure that everybody is being served and happy. If you are one of those nonprofits, please call us because we'd love to talk to you. But for everybody else, I think there's a lot of friction. There may be people out on leave. There may be people that have left the organization and they leave these holes in processes and friction that maybe nobody has even noticed until it blows up because nobody has been doing that process and didn't realize it needed to be done. And so this is kind of what we're talking about, the ideation stage, is how do you get all of your leaders and your staff together and say, tell me about all of the issues that you're encountering in your workflows and your process. And we do a lot of these sessions with clients to kind of be that neutral party and to be able to moderate that discussion. And it's really exciting, the kinds of things that people are thinking about innovating. Next slide, please. So when we were doing these workshops, we have asked our folks, what does AI success look like? Knowing that you're not going to go from 0 to hero in overnight, what does that ladder look like to get from the stage 1 ideation phase to what could we actually be doing 12 to 18 months from now? And these are some of the suggestions that we received. Because I think when you're thinking about what is the biggest bang for your buck, if you're going to adopt AI, you want to do it to bring in more revenue and more fundraising into the organization, or you want to be able to be more efficient so that you can use your resources more wisely and have the impact go further. And so a lot of these things are related to increasing revenue or decreasing expenses, right? A very common refrain we find in nonprofits. But with AI, we can do things permanently this way. So we know that it's kind of the crockpot setting. You can set it and forget it. So once it's automated, unless you have new scenarios or new use cases, it's always going to be automated, and you can move on to doing other work or automating other different processes and systems. And ultimately, from a financial and operational standpoint, you've got all the productivity gains. Accounting is often a thankless job. Everybody thinks we love making all those rules and having them submit things in certain ways, but we know better. We know we're doing it because there's a compliance that we have to do, or a report we have to make, or a donor we have to report to. And so thinking about from an operational standpoint, how can we get to that faster given the time and the resource constraints that we all have? Next slide. Polling question number 2. Get ready for it. Does your organization have an AI use policy? So most of the folks there said that they were a 2 or a 3, and then we had 10 people on this call who said they were a 4 or a 5 on the experience with AI. When I do this kind of a session live, when I ask people to hold their hand up if they're using AI, and then ask them to put their hand down if they know if they have an AI use policy at their organization, 90% of the hands go down. So we'll see if that is the same on our call today. But if you don't have an AI use policy, people are using AI without a policy, potentially, some of you on this call even. And so how do you protect your organization's data? How do you protect your donors and your participant privacy, especially since nonprofits are, dealing with marginalized populations who are being targeted in some ways? How does that information that you have on them, tracking, they went through your program, where they are 5 years later? It seems like a great goal, could be problematic in the current environment that we find ourselves in. And so we want to make sure that we're maintaining that privacy and that data isn't being shared back. And so we want to make sure that we're using enterprise level controls that aren't sharing data, or if you don't have that kind of an account, that you're making sure that you are going to not put any of that information that can be linked back to a specific person back into the system. And one fact before we close did we just close the poll? I don't have
that might be a good what success looks like in the next 12 to 18 months, right? Like having
absolutely
that policy
create that AI use policy.
Yeah.
It looks like the majority of you don't, about 2/3 of you don't have a policy. That's consistent. And my only other call out on this is going to be on anonymized data. And so I saw a study done by that said 90% of Americans can be identified by 3 pieces of information: your location, your birth date, and your gender. And so if you have those 3 pieces of information in data that you are feeding into AI, it's not quite as anonymous as you think it is. So that would be my call out there when considering crafting your AI use policy. But definitely reach out to us if you need help. We have plenty of samples there. Next slide. Okay. So earlier I mentioned starting your AI enablement journey. And where do you start? You don't want to go all the way to autonomous analysis and actions. That's 0 to hero, right? I want to start and think about what are those incremental micro adjustments to just remove a little bit of friction, just make a process a little bit smoother, to increase the time that you can close the books by half a day. What are those little things that we can do to be able to boost our productivity? And that's where we're seeing people start, is in those general productivity boosting areas, and really in the fundraising area as well. How can we get more information to know that our donors are ready to move to a higher level, or that they're getting ready to cancel their subscription, or that they're ready to do some planned giving with us? And so all of the insights with all of these kind of donor analysis and overlay and AI tools are using publicly available information and other sources. And it's good to vet them and understand how they are using and obtaining that data. It can give you lots of insights on how you can better target donors, how you can better match up with grants that are supporting your area of focus, both from a foundational standpoint and a governmental standpoint, if that is still happening, and thinking about all of the different ways that you can pull it in. And so if you started today, 12 to 18 months, you could definitely be at step two here. And so thinking about what does your organizational journey look like? Are you a Google shop and have Gemini already embedded in all of your productivity tools? Are you a Microsoft shop and have Copilot embedded in all of your tools? I think there's a lot of opportunity, even without making additional investments in AI, to just use the tools that you have available free embedded in the products that you have. And I know Lauren's going to talk more about that as well. Next slide. And here we go. Over to you, Lauren.
Yeah, as we think about today's topic in particular, there can often be a little bit of blur between what's considered generative AI and what's considered agentic, right? If you think about it this way, generative AI is a thought partner. It is a tool to brainstorm, generate content. And agentic AI is more one that acts for you and completes a task for you. So if you take some of the examples here, generative AI is more along the lines of content creation, tailoring, to fit an audience or a tone. But then agentic AI is more like end-to-end process automation or workflow execution, like tracking deadlines or generating compliance alerts, those kind of things that take it a step further. So we'll try to focus mostly on agentic today, but I did incorporate some examples where, they're given whether you're in Copilot or Gemini, that you can do today, even without kind of that full license or kind of the embedded version. So wanted to share a little bit of both. Before we get into the demos, we have our third polling question inquiring which tools your organization is currently using. Feel free to check all of the ones that are applicable. This just gives us kind of a baseline, although we will show Copilot and Gemini today. Everybody, another couple seconds here. I think, Brenda, you mentioned this morning that just established a relationship, right?
Yeah, so Candid announced on Giving Tuesday, and they sent it out in their newsletter today, if anybody receives that they have partnered with Claude to put all of that power of the Claude AI over their treasure trove of nonprofit background information available in GuideStar, now Candid. And so thinking about what can you use that for? And also remembering that is now very publicly available. So your organizational information, it really makes that 990 even more of a marketing tool than it was in the past because of all of the information it contains, more so than just a traditional operation that's not doing those 25 pages of disclosures. And all of the information that's contained in that return is so important to be able to position yourself to future funders and donors. So thinking about, your 990 is going to be part of that AI tech stack. And what can you do with that? Can you do some benchmarking? Can you do all of the different things that your peer group are doing? I think it's really exciting to have this as another available option.
Right. Looks like most are utilizing ChatGPT and Copilot, and Gemini is kind of in third there. So anything that you guys see in Copilot or Gemini today, you can establish in ChatGPT as well as like a custom GPT or within a project. The only reason we're not really showing it is because these embedded versions, there is some flexibility and kind of to have as far as document sharing and that kind of thing goes. They do have more enterprise level data protection with the advanced subscriptions. You can obviously get the same within ChatGPT or even establish connectors to Google Drive or Microsoft SharePoint as well. Right, so we will get into the demo portion. One thing that I'm sure everyone is having to deal with at some point or another is donor acknowledgements or thank you. You probably have individuals on your teams that are doing a ton of these, and the secret sauce is making them feel authentic, genuine, thoughtful, warm, and still attentive to who it's actually going to, right? And so Kind of going to show an example to actually highlight generative versus agentic. So give me a second here while I minimize that and we will pull that up. So I'm in Copilot. I do have the full license, so this might look a little bit different depending on your version. The nice thing that you will always see is that if you are utilizing Copilot, even if you don't have the full license, most users that utilize or have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft will see this green shield indicating enterprise data protection. That just means that your data is your data. Microsoft has taken a pretty hard stance with this. And so anything that you are putting into here is not being utilized to train the model, nor is it leaving your tenant, meaning it's not leaving your, what they refer to as your Microsoft graph. So the premium or full license with Copilot just means that it is embedded in other applications. I also have access to create agent and other components as well. So if we were to utilize Copilot and have it just write a thank you note or a donor acknowledgement, we might just put something like this as far as a prompt goes in that basically says, hey, write a thank you email to the particular recipient. This is what she gave. It was to our youth mentoring program or whatever the gift allocation might be. A bit short, an impact statement. It will generate a thoughtful thank you email, no problem, right? It's going to say, oh, thank you so much for your generous gift. Your support provides a lot. That kind of thing, right? It'll even ask a follow-up question. Do you want me to include a short sentence? If you have the full license, you will also see an edit in Outlook option, which is always great. It will bring that draft into Outlook with the appropriate subject and the recipient if it knows it, so you can edit directly in line. That said, right, that's the generative version of this. If we wanted to take it a step further, putting it into an agent might be something along the lines of connecting it to your CRM or whatever application you're utilizing from a donation and donor acknowledgement standpoint, and having it recognize a particular individual to send a thank you to. So if I provided a prompt to send it a thank you email, this is to me just as a demo example, but you could put any donor recipient that might be in your CRM. It's going to do some work to acknowledge the donation details. So it says, hey, here's the donation details, the amount, the overview in honor of my particular mentor is the note that I added. And then it drafts it, right? And it says, oh, thank you so much for your gift. And then it says, would you like me to send this email? And I can respond and say, yes, please send it. And it's going to work on sending that.
So this is pretty cool, Lauren, because you didn't tell them how much your donation was for or any of that. It went and found that information. How did it know to do that?
So that's where it's going to have like a connection to, I have it connected to demo data right from a donation standpoint, but it could in theory be connected like through a Microsoft Graph connector or another avenue, right, from a technical lens to your particular, like to Razor's Edge, for example, right? Or to Sage Intacct for that matter, if that's where you're containing like donation information from an incoming standpoint.
So this is where people tell us that they should be able to manage their whole accounting close and fundraising stack through essentially Slack or Teams.
Yeah.
Is the agentic kind of, and so this really shows the power of it is you're just executing commands and it's doing all of the work.
Yeah. So briefly, here's the email. I would work on some formatting, right? I think you could just do that by saying, hey, we want this in HTML format. But the nice thing about this that I think people want the control of is this portion, which is like, hey, would you like me to send this email? Here's a draft of that. Rather than just automatically dispatching out emails without anyone having awareness into what's being shared and having the opportunity to make them more thoughtful, right? More intentional, more human centric. So hopefully that helps to provide some clarity around like what is agentic versus generative. So that's kind
We
of the
always
first.
talk about like the human in the loop, right? You still have the chance to edit that message or change it or make sure, it's correct before you send it out.
That's a common thing that we hear, especially from the development side of organizations, right? There's certain donors that need to be talked with and cultivated in a certain way. And so this would be really powerful to do that with them.
Yes, absolutely. The next one that often comes up, and I think Stacey, you mentioned it early, is related to like audience aware, basically communications. This could be taken steps further to automatically do a lot of this work, but I kind of wanted to show something in Gemini. So this is a gem. A gem basically has some additional context, instruction, sentiment to be able to elevate a typical Gemini response back to you. And so this particular one, I asked it to review a particular university's latest updates, news, events, and craft customized communications for 3 different audiences. So for parents, alumni, and just kind of general donors, I provided it with some additional information as well, but that's kind of the gist. And if I were to provide it with, like, my alma mater is Penn State, so if I provide it with the general kind of like news link that is relevant to Penn State, pull that over so you all can see it too. So if I were to provide it with just our general like edu/news and ask it to please draft audience communications for the latest in December. And so with Gemini, with the full license, gems don't quite integrate the same way that they do within Copilot, that you can kind of automate the email. There are separate kind of third-party applications that you can utilize to do that, but it does do a lot of the heavy lifting for you and is able to be more context aware with instruction, sentiment, and provide more thoughtful outputs. And so here's some headlines from a parent's perspective. Giving an overview of, hey, we want to share the magic with you of our upcoming winter glow at the Arboretum, an overview of the presentations happening at the Nutcracker, showing at the Eisenhower Auditorium, and then it provides a suggested like call to action even. And so you can have it sign off with gratitude from whomever is appropriate, right? But I think it's a great way to start to recognize how you can still make thoughtful and genuine communications utilizing AI without kind of depersonalizing anything. More often than not, people get really frustrated because they're like, it sounds like it's AI, right? Well, yeah, it probably does, but if you craft and work on that prompt and that thoughtfulness, you can get to things that are more meaningful and still feel really human-centric and empathetic without, feeling like, oh, this felt like it was AI, and kind of that weird feeling that we sometimes get with it.
And there are ways, Lauren, that people can train it on a specific set of data, right? So instead of having it be trained on the entire internet, it's trained on your folder that has, the past 5 years of thank yous you sent out.
Yes.
And so it's got your organizational tone and history, and it understands what you're going for. Yeah. And so you can feed it more examples to be able to guide it to better results.
Yeah, exactly. The more like knowledge sources that you can provide, what classifies something as good by your organizational standards is super helpful, right? The biggest thing that like people will often ask questions about is like, well, that kind of creates a biases, but it does, but the intention is that it's what you all as an organization agree is the standard, right? Is good. And so it's not going to create, it's only going to kind of be voiced based off of the sources that you provide it. So as long as those are good in the standard of your eyes, they're a great tool, right? The next one will probably be rather common and everybody hoping to see something similar, but detecting where maybe transactions that are related to a specific grant are kind of outside of the appropriate norms or indicate an anomaly and require review. So this one I tried to keep pretty simplistic. So it's actually in a notebook. So for reference, this would be the same as a project in ChatGPT. In Gemini, you could do it in a gem. You could also utilize Notebook LM depending on your subscription. But I just provided it with some instruction, basically saying, hey, this is your role. Here's the specific grant and the specifications that apply to it, right? And then I am going to provide it. To keep this one pretty simple, I'm going to provide it an example. Basically, this is all demo data, so it's nothing's legitimate. So if it looks a little, try to make it as realistic as possible, but if it looks a little bit wonky, know that's what's happening. So let me find the transaction data and we'll reference that and ask it if there are any. So we'll drop the file in there. In Copilot, you can also back to reference any particular files that will allow it to search if you have the full license. And then I'm just going to ask it to review the batch of transactions and summarize any that don't follow the grant specifications.
So this could be something that's really powerful. If I think back to that one slide where we kind of had all the sub verticals listed and some of the use cases, like this could be really beneficial in the social services space for organizations that are reviewing utilization of grant awards. Maybe they're monitoring another organization that actually administers that grant program. Could be applicable in the foundation space too, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the output that Copilot provided me. It gives me an overview of the grant and some of the specification details. It also then any non-compliant or potential issues that might need review, right? And it tries to provide some sort of indicator as to what it's looking for that might be missing. So food, it seems like food expense are explicitly disallowed, so we probably need to reassess that one. But for something like travel, an example, hey, it may exceed the $20,000 cap. You should verify the total. So it tries to give some sort of indicator as to what you need to look for. So managing by exception, right? And then it provides you some recommended next steps and any follow-up actions that would be required as well. So the nice thing, and Stacey, probably what you will love, is that you could prepare then like an audit ready summary table of the transaction, the issue, and the recommended action. So super helpful.
I love it. And to all of the social service organizations out there, for example, like you all can probably do that too, right? If you're involved in monitoring and compliance, right? Like this is kind of a similar approach to it as like the audit would for the external purposes.
Yes. Yep.
Love it.
So,
Awesome.
Lauren, I see that you have the researcher on for this one. I know we weren't specifically going to cover that, but do you have some thoughts or some insights like on the researcher and analyst and kind of what the different kind of flavors of things are that they're offering?
Yeah, so with the full Copilot license, you get access to researcher and analyst, which are two out of the box agents. There's a whole bunch of others that are out of the box, but those are the two that they automatically plant in there for you. You can search for others, but researcher is the same as deep research, which I think Gemini was kind of the first to really like capitalize on that. ChatGPT has their version of it as well. So that is when you need it to provide very thoughtful research around a particular topic or subject, right? So maybe there's regulatory changes that you need to be apprised of and need summarized, right? That's probably a great tool to utilize because it's going to return more. It basically fact checks itself and provides a little bit more detail into where it's pulling the data from and the sources. It will scan a lot more sources as well. It won't stick to like the 3 to 5 that you maybe see in a general chat. It will deep dive into like 150 of the top most relevant searches. You can also narrow it to say like, hey, these are the types of sources that I'm looking for, which can be really helpful from a prompt perspective. With analysts, let's see if I have any, let me see if I have any demo data that I can drop in there.
Analyst is also great just to like run your financial statements through it too, your internal financial statements. A lot of times that will, especially if it's looking at them historically, could pop out journal entries or something of the like that's missed in an analysis form, and that can be really powerful.
Absolutely.
I have no idea what this is going to return, so bear with us. We're doing this one live. But Analyst is great because of the fact that it actually knows Python. So it's able to understand data and make sense of it and still draw trends and analytics out of it. You're going to see that it reasons a lot longer than the average tool. And then it will also be able to execute visualizations as well, which is super helpful. It can give you a great starting point for a board presentation that you need to make. And so that's always helpful.
Absolutely.
So they do reason quite a bit longer.
Yeah.
And that's really helpful because when it reasons for a very short time, oftentimes it's not as well thought out of a response that you're getting.
Yep.
You can also like click into these if I can. So you're actually able to see like the charts that it's producing as well. It's a lot of jargon, right, to the average user, but you can see that it's providing, hey, the program sums equal this particular calculation, right? So you can actually see the logic that it's doing as if you were looking at like an Excel formula almost.
So it's kind of like it's running a whole bunch of pivot tables to kind of figure out what the trends are, what this data set looks like, and maybe what that might be able to tell us about what the future holds.
Yeah. Yep. Give it another second or two here. All right. So here's kind of the key metrics, gives you the donation type breakdown, program designation, timing and campaign effects, donor retention, and then it's going to try and produce some visuals as well for us.
And this would be great for just getting started, for, preparing your management summary or, getting ready for those board books to do your own analysis. And sure, you can go into Excel and you can run these pivot tables and you can prepare these graphs yourself, but this is definitely faster.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Let me go back to our presentation here. And I think we are diving into polling question number 4. So what's your biggest barrier to adopting AI in your organization? Limited budget, lack of staff training, data security concerns, not really sure where to start, or maybe leadership's a little bit hesitant towards it. And probably for some of you, it's like a mixture of all of the above.
Hopefully after this session, we get everybody past the not sure where to start. Hopefully everybody has a good place to at least land there.
Right. Mostly across the board, but it looks like not sure where to start is kind of taking the lead quickly behind data security concerns or lack of staff training.
And that's been our top answer for the last, I would say, 18 months, Lauren. We've done a lot of these webinars, and that's why we started really showing a lot of these practical examples. When you get the recording and the slides for this one, if you go back through our website, there's a whole bunch of other recordings of this where we share different examples that you can kind of use to get inspiration. We're always happy to do that. One other example we wanted to talk through today was related to investment activity. Getting all of that, if you have a lot of investment accounts, we worked with a foundation that had over 100 investment managers. And so just getting all of that information journaled into the system on a monthly and quarterly basis was monumental task for them. And so when they had that ideation session of what are the big pain points and how can we make your life better? The accounting manager raised her hand and said, "This is awful. I don't want to do this anymore. How can we make this easier and better?" Like every single statement is different. They have different timelines. Some of them are cumulative, some of them are fiscal year, some of them are on some wacky thing. How do I know, how to journal my investments so that I get everything in the right place? And how do I do that consistently and accurately every single time? And so we looked at that and looked at a way to be able to have the agent go and download the information from the investment site to format it in such a way that it could be uploaded into their accounting system and send that and attach the backup and then send that journal entry for approval to the accounting manager. And so now, instead of doing all of the data entry for this and then having somebody else review it, because if you do it, you can't review it. It's hard to have that separation. She's now put in a reviewer position. So it has elevated her role. It has increased her happiness, of course, and it has saved them over 500 hours a year just on this one task. Again, this is one of those thankless tasks that has to be done, but it doesn't have to be a person that does it. The bot that does it is more accurate and much faster. It can process all of those in a fraction of the time that it would take an actual human. And it has capacity to do lots of more and scale with them as they change and adopt new investment managers. So that's really, really the great part of it, is that it allows them to get to that point a lot sooner and to have that more accurate information a lot earlier. Next slide.
Brenda, this organization named their bot, correct? Their agent?
They did.
Yeah, it's kind of fun too.
Yeah, so we always encourage everybody to name their bots, name their agents. The only thing we ask is please don't name it how. That's our
Yeah. So this is a demo video of what you just elaborated on, Brenda. So they named their bot Fabio. So I think somebody asked in the Q&A section, is robotic process automation obsolete with the advancements in AI? I think the short answer is no, as Brenda already addressed. It is still very much a useful tool, especially when you're dealing with sensitive information, right? I don't want AI logging into your bank account. I don't think that you want that either, right? But robotic process automation is strictly logic based. It's only going to do the actions that it is specified to do. It doesn't evolve, it doesn't change, it doesn't hallucinate, right? It's strictly configured and coded to do exactly that. And so we're able to do a lot more in regards to finance and kind of back office related processes, just knowing that they can be rather sensitive from time to time.
And I think it highlights the fact that AI is a blanket term. It encompasses a whole bunch of different tools, from generative AI and kind of the LLMs to robotic process automation to now agentic AI and every flavor in between as well.
Yeah. And sometimes the end solution is a combination, right? Sometimes it's utilizing robotic process automation with machine learning to better decipher documentation, right? And so it does really depend. This is just another case that we did for that particular foundation. Their grant making software, we integrated it with their instance of Sage Intacct. And so there's no kind of manually keying or reconciling of information between the two. And so it does fully kind of free up an employee's time to make sure that the grant details are successfully entered to Sage Intacct, and that's fully autonomous now. So. All right. I think we've got our last polling question before I pass it off to you, Stacy. Which AI-driven tasks would have the greatest impact for your nonprofit? You can select multiple. Right. Okay, I would say this is still consistent with kind of what we're hearing and seeing across the board. So automating the routine tasks, definitely a close then second between grant writing and fundraising support, donor insights, and program impact measurement, which I think is not surprising. So given the variety that we've got on the call today.
All right. So we're on the home stretch right now. Those of you that have questions, make sure you put them in the chat. Just wanted to remind everybody of that. We're trying to answer some of them live as we go along, but if there's anything that we miss, we'll make sure we get back to y'all after the event. So here, we just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts on the next slide. This is a really just practical graphic that each of you can use in scaling AI in your organization. We really talked a lot about those different areas where you can use AI, where there's logical use cases for AI within your organization, within your sub-vertical as well. We talked through a lot of those. But what I would say here is like really the start and the foundation, just bringing us back to that opportunity identification and prioritization. It helps to have everybody on the same page with respect to those ideas and what is going to take priority. You're not going to get 100% commitment. You're not going to get everybody 100% on the page. But if you get 90% of everybody rowing in the same boat, where AI is going to make the greatest impact on your organization, that's going to be the most beneficial conversation for you to have. And a lot of the demos that we did today do hit to where there's impact, right? Like the giving a piece of your organization that translates into revenue, translates into donor impact, translate into programmatic accomplishment. Those are all areas where you definitely want to explore AI. And just, a little bit of a shameless plug, if I might here. We help a lot of organizations. We've helped a lot of organizations over the past year, the past 18 months, really be your thought partner and your strategic partner, specifically with the opportunity identification and management of the process and enabling you to get to a space that is going to scale your organization and help you with automation, like Brenda said earlier. So keep that in mind as you kind of think through your journey. If we go on to the next slide, just again, the key areas to consider when we talk about AI and nonprofits, how we can help, steps here, AI maturity versus complexity, all the way to scalability. So there's challenges and opportunities that are created at the very start of the process. Those challenges and opportunities exist throughout the process. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of cross collaboration within your organization, different departments, bringing in those different skill sets, those different ideas. Remember, AI is an enabler. It doesn't take the place of human work that needs to be done. A lot of times it upskills what we need to do. As Brenda and Lauren mentioned earlier, we talk to our people internally about that at our firm too with what we do. AI just really helps to elevate our people and to be able to be more of a strategic partner with their clients. And so if you look at it that way, you're able to be a strategic partner to whoever your constituents are. So those could be your donors, those could be your external and internal stakeholders. And just if you think about it that way, it's really going to help your enablement process and how you use AI for the good and for the benefit of your organization. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this. You can't spell Armanino without AI. AI is in Armanino. We are, as I mentioned at the beginning, very much an AI firm. We very much want to be able to elevate our clients as you go through your process. So we are open anytime that you want to have more detailed conversations, and even if we can just sit down and brainstorm with you, because we learn from you all as well. As we mentioned earlier with the workshops that we've been provided. Every time we host one of those workshops, we learn from you and from our clients, and that helps us to provide those best practices to other organizations too. Our contact information is there if you want to get in touch with us. As we mentioned, we're happy to answer any and all questions. If we didn't get to you during this presentation, we will have follow-up, and we are excited to have you all join us today. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we're going to see you soon on our next webinars. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.